Knees and toes.
Does shoulders have to do with anything?
Because of what you did to my bold prediction. Yes, I'm taking this too far, but I don't care. We're
The
going.
noise is great for those who are audio only.
What's up, everyone, and welcome into a special edition of the Buffalo Sports Collective. Today, we welcome co-host of the Runout, the Tar Pit Podcasts. It's Brandon Hooten. Brandon, thanks for jumping on with us, and how's it going?
Of course, I appreciate you having me. It's going well, aside from, the Broncos losing yesterday. A bit tough, but, the Mammoth won Saturday, so it wasn't a total letdown every weekend. So
Yeah, you joined the Buffalo Bills going to Cancun, except you don't have to look for a new head coach, and you're probably not going to get a very embarrassing press conference. So
also
you're one step ahead of us Bills fans out here. But we got you on to talk Mammoth. It was a very busy offseason for this club. You had Zed Williams get traded to Rochester. Connor Robinson goes to San Diego. Kelly gets traded for Andrew Q out to Georgia. Gibson gets released, and Eli McLaughlin's still away with his firefighting career. Were all these moves, not just these exclusively, but all the moves made by Colorado this offseason expected?
I definitely wouldn't say all of them. A few of them, absolutely. I said as soon as Seneca Nation bought Rochester that Zed was gone. To me, that was the writing on the wall. It makes sense for him logistically, as well as, that's his home nation. The Connor Kelly trade, in hindsight, makes a lot of sense, just assuming that they knew he wasn't playing. Obviously, we kind of knew we needed a lefty with Eli McLaughlin being out, and we knew that was going to be a year-long plus thing. So I think those kind of made sense. The ones that really caught me by surprise, Tyson Gibson first being released, was just a little bit of a, whoa, like, not that Tyson is, a Jack Hanna or anything like that, but, our right side was already depleted. So I was kind of like, that's a bit weird. And then, later on down the line, we knew Brian Cameron or someone on that left side was getting traded, and all of a sudden, he's traded, and then Connor Robinson's traded. That, to me, was, like, the biggest, like, what is happening right now? But, yeah, otherwise, like, I think they got younger on the back end, which was kind of expected. So most of them I think I kind of saw coming, but definitely a couple of big shakeups that I was like, whoa, I didn't think that was happening.
Yeah, they were very, very busy this offseason. And I've already admitted on the last show, on Monday's episode, that Colorado might be my biggest miss this year. And I kind of whispered into the mic that I think it's time to say Colorado is back. But what is one word to describe the Mammoth season so far, 7 games in, sitting 5-2 towards the top end of the standings?
Man, one word. I would just say juiced. Just if you go back and you watch some of those games last year, really the last several years since going to the championship against Buffalo, they just haven't looked on top of their game at all. They look like they kind of just rely on Dillon Ward and hope that everything works out. And there are games that he can steal for sure. But I think this year you watch him play and there's so much more energy. Even this last game against Oshawa, I felt like they were hustling for loose balls like crazy. They were, even if they turned the ball over, they were riding hard to get it back. Like, stuff like that I just feel like we didn't see. And part of that was, like, getting Jack Hanna, I think, helped a lot. And obviously you lose Ryan Lee, and, like, all of a sudden guys have to step up, and they're fighting for playing spots. Like I said, a lot of these guys are young to where they need to play well, which I think is really, really helpful. So, yeah, I would say juiced. Energetic is another one. Just something like that. It's a fun sight to see this year.
We'll start at the front gate. Will Malcolm comes over last year in the dispersal draft, and I think while he had a very solid season, putting up 81 points, I think this season, with all the changes out the front door, he was expected to take that next step and lead this forward group. Do you believe he's taken that next step to be that leader out the front door?
Kind of. It's a bit of a cop-out, but the reason I say that is just, I think because we added a guy like Andrew Q, he doesn't necessarily have to. If it was just him, then yeah, I think he's had several, 6-point games, 7-point games, whatever it is. And from that perspective, like, yeah, absolutely. And I think as he gets older and just more mature, he's going to get better and better. But I think it's tough for him to kind of take the full leadership role when you have a guy like Andrew Q who is experienced and knows what he's doing. And obviously once Eli McLaughlin comes back, like, I'm not saying Malcolm's going to, take a back seat by any means, but Eli McLaughlin's been there, done that. So I think a bit of yes and no, but more than anything, he's improved a ton over the last year, and I think he's a guy that, like, at the end of the game, if he has the ball in his stick, I trust him to make the right play.
Yeah, and you mentioned Andrew Q, and when McLaughlin comes back, it's not that he's taking that back seat, but he's not going to get the top defender every single matchup. So
Yeah.
actually adding another strong lefty on that side could improve his game, where it might hurt in the numbers, where he might have a point or two less. I think it'll make the offense itself flow a little bit better. And you mentioned Andrew Q. I mean, he comes over in the Connor Kelly deal. Captain Clutch is in Colorado now, but due to injury, he's only appeared in 3 games. And when he came back, 10 points last weekend versus Oshawa is a pretty welcome back statement here. But in the limited time you've seen him in this offense, what have you liked about that he adds to this lineup and just maybe takes it to that next level?
I think I just like his calmness more than anything. I think even in that first Vancouver game, but especially like that Philly game, week 2 or week 3 rather, the offense was just so unsettled. Everything was like, we're going quick, we're just going to take the first shot available, whatever the case may be. And then you saw last week, Andrew Q comes back and he's settling the offense. He never looks, even when he's getting pressured by 2 guys, he looks calm. He can obviously play with both hands a little bit because he has that field background, which is helpful. And I think he just does a little bit of everything. That first weekend, he didn't score a lot of goals, but he was assisting like crazy. And then there's going to be games like this past week where he just does both extremely well. And I think that, going back to that last question, takes a lot of pressure off of guys like Malcolm to where, hey, score when you can, otherwise we'll run the 2-man game and get it going. He opens up a lot of opportunities as well for guys like Thomas Vela, who had 4 points last week, who I don't think a lot of people know his name, but he's doing the dirty work to kind of help Andrew Q get open, and then Andrew Q is able to do that same thing back to him. So between that and like able to swing the rock across the field like he can, and just I just think he does a little bit of everything. And like you said, Captain Clutch. I mean, we've seen him in Georgia bury game winners, for years now. So I just feel like having that, as much as I loved Connor Kelly, like getting that in return was absolutely massive.
Yeah, Captain Clutch, you haven't really needed him yet, but it's in his back pocket when you do. 4 questions in, and we haven't talked about one of the worst kept secrets in the league in Jack Hanna. He gets moved from Vegas to Colorado. It was expected, just when. And he's likely going to be a lifer in that uniform now. 2-part question. Were you expecting to see a deal get done this early in the season? And were you happy with the overall deal?
Yeah, I think I even said it was going to get done this year, but I definitely thought it was going to be more of like a trade deadline deal. Reason being, I felt like if you wait too long, Vegas could potentially miss out on some picks from 26, and I just felt like it makes more sense for them to kind of get that peak value for him. And obviously for Colorado, you watch that Philly game, they put up 7 goals. And I said on the run out a couple of times, like, how long does that happen until Brad Self goes, hey, we need to make a move? And when Jack Hanna's there, like, you got to make a move on that. Overall, though, I love the deal, especially when there was rumors that Warren Jeffrey was going to get shipped out, or, a young defenseman or goalie or whatever. Like, I was anti that the entire time. So to only give up picks for that is insane, especially when one of them is basically a second-round pick, because it's a compensatory pick, I believe. So excited for that. And like you said, to have someone like him just here for life, especially he's just like Eric Law, in my opinion, where he's doing so much for the sport in Colorado and Denver. Like, having that guy here full-time is just awesome.
Yeah, as soon as I saw that the Mammoth put in an offer sheet on him, I was like, okay, things are going to start moving here pretty quickly. Yep. But Ryan Lee finally felt like he was back to his old form. And then he just goes down with another injury, and it sucks for him, and it sucks for the sport because he's just so fun to watch. But the 5th overall pick from this last draft, Braden Saris, is once again going to be asked to produce early on in this offseason, or this offense. It felt like, okay, he's coming in and they're going to ask too much from him, and then they get Jack Hanna, and then you got Ryan Lee and Jack Hanna, and then Ryan Lee goes down, so Saris is going to have to step up again. What have you seen in his play, just 6 games in already, that has improved from his first action this season so far?
Yeah, I think I'm going to ask Coach about this actually this weekend, and it's just the jitters are just gone. Like, those first couple of games, he didn't have a point. He was getting 5 to 6 shots on goal a game, and you just kind of knew that, like, at some point one of these is going to fall. But you also just tell, like you said, that he was being asked to do a lot of things that I don't think we probably should have been having to ask him to do. And then once you lose Ryan Lee, it was like, oh shoot, like, he's going to be the guy. You see him leading the power play, and initially I was like, he doesn't seem settled enough. He's, kind of making some errant passes, like all this stuff. And all of a sudden, he buries that first one a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, okay, here we go. And I think, too, he sat out a game. He was a healthy scratch at one point for Owen Ron. And I think after that, that really helped him kind of, I think, see the floor a little bit differently. Coach Hoyle said that in a presser as well, that just sometimes you see the floor better when you have to take a game off, and you have to understand that, like, sometimes the open shot isn't necessarily the best one. And that's where I've seen the most improvement from him. And then obviously he had a 4-point game last week against Oshawa. So as much as I wish Ryan Lee was out there, this is probably best case scenario for Saris's development, in my opinion. Just, hey, go ball. Like, outside of Jack Hanna, it's him and Owen Ron pretty much. You have Dylan McIntosh getting some run as well, but I'm excited for him. But, it's just going to take some time because he's still a young guy who's trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, I remember, I think it was 3 years ago now, it was Cam Wires. It was trial by fire because Bryce Sweeting wasn't back there in that regular PK role. And me and Phil were coming on the podcast just going like, I don't know why they just keep putting him out there. And then it got to game 5 or 6 and it started to click. And we're like, okay, when Sweeting comes back, which he never ended up coming back, we're like, now you got 2 guys back there that you can rely on. Yep. So, yes, I agree with you. Saris, trial by fire, it seems to already pay off, and he's just going to keep getting better and better. And last one in terms of the offense here. Who is an X factor in this offense this season? Now, it can be anyone that, you feel like is going to step up in place of the injuries or until Eli McLaughlin's back, or somebody that's going to do the dirty work to free up these scorers that are on this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious ones are Q and Hannah. Those are probably your 2 best on either side, but I'm going to take a different approach and say it's all of the role players. It's guys like Thomas Vella. It's guys like Owen Ron, who just had his first career hat trick.
I know you love him.
The other night. I love Owen, and I love him because he can do so much on both ends of the floor. Like, he's a D guy for us the last couple of seasons, and now he's playing offense. Jalen Chester, who was injured this past week, but I mean, you watch that guy play, and what can't he do? Like, I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, when McLaughlin comes back, who gets bumped from that left side? Does Chester go back to play D? Like, does he stick in the offense and Vela gets bumped? Like, I just don't know where that goes, but all those guys, specifically those 3, do all of the little things. They do the dirty work. They're setting screens, and they're all small dudes. Like, they're not like a Zed Williams who's able to just body guys. We just watched Dawson Thied in person this past week. That dude's a monster of a human being. We have no one like that. But that's what makes those 3 guys great, I think. It's just that they're willing to do whatever it takes, and they don't really care how many times they touch the ball. And like I said earlier, that opens up the shots for Andrew Q, for Will Malcolm, for Jack Hanna. So outside of those obvious ones, I'd probably go with those 3 guys, but there's a lot of good candidates probably on that offense.
Now, you are a part of 3 different podcasts. You got the Run Out that comes out every week. You got the Tar Pit every week, and then Outside the Box. Which one is your favorite? No, I'm not putting you on the spot, but it has to be tough to be involved in 3 different shows all at once because is it truly that difficult, or is it a bit easier because they're with different co-hosts and it different kind of, runouts overall the whole league, and the Tar Pit's more just Colorado based, and that it kind of keeps the conversations flowing?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both for sure, and we're actually adding a 4th one, a college lacrosse show, which is not really my wheelhouse, but I'm trying to get into it, so we're just gonna kind of go with it and hope that can be some good comedic relief for the meantime. But no, it's both easy and hard for different reasons. Like the Tar Pit, Tusk Talk, that came about just because we felt like, hey, we need content for our socials. These fans have been asking for it. We can record a 20, 30-minute episode pretty easily, and we don't have to be super in-depth. They just want to hear something about your team, and that's awesome and super, super fun. The Run Out kind of just came about because Neil one day was like, hey, I want to bring this back, and I need a co-host. And at the time, I didn't do any talking. Like, I was strictly photographing, which is still my main goal, but this has really helped me kind of branch out and learn parts of the game, especially the field game. I've only been watching the field game for 4 years maybe at most. Like, I was a box kid growing up watching it, so that's been really helpful and fun with him. And then, working with Kyle and DJ on OTB has just been awesome because, again, they are far more knowledgeable. They know more people in the sport, all that stuff. So I just kind of get to sit back and listen to them and contribute where I can. And I do think that each pod, if you listen to it, is a little bit structured differently to where we might talk about the same things and I might have some of the same takes, but it might be structured differently, and maybe I say we record Run Out on Tuesday nights. Well, by the time I record OTB on Thursday, I might have a totally different outlook on something, which has been super, super cool to where I can look back and say, I said this the other night, but actually now that I think about it and kind of do that. So it's mostly just tough just dealing with like everyday life stuff in addition. between my day job, photographing events, and then recording everything. But it's been a fun challenge, and if nothing else, it's hopefully expanding the game to my friends and family that maybe don't watch lacrosse as much.
Yeah, as long as you don't have all 3 recordings on the same day. I've had to do that before, and then by the end, it's like, God, can't talk about this sport anymore. Let's flip to the defensive side of the ball now. A guy that I feel doesn't get enough love around the league and was actually one of my bold predictions a couple years ago for Defender of the Year is Warren Jeffrey. For those that don't track Colorado lacrosse like you do, can you better explain just how good he is around the league? And does this league need another award so guys like him, or for people that are listening that are Buffalo Bandits fans, like a Justin Martin, that might not get the numbers, but they deserve the recognition around the league? My thought was more like the offensive lineman award that just got added to football this last year.
Yeah, so to answer the second part of that, yes, the league does need a secondary award. That's kind of been something I've been campaigning for a while, because I don't think defenders in general get the love. And as much as I love offense and it's easy to quantify what they're impacting, like, go watch Colorado's defense the last several years. Even in losses, like, they're keeping them in it for the most part. And a guy like Warren Jeffrey, the best way I can describe him is he has all the aggression and he's a disciplined player that even when he takes a penalty, it's most likely a smart penalty. That he's coming in and saying, "Hey, this is what's going to be all night. You're going to run through the middle. We're going to hit you." Even there was a penalty against Georgia where I felt like he laid the boom on, I think it was Benedict, 86, and they put him in the box, and I was like, I'm good with that. It was right in front of me. I'm like, yeah, because you need to let that guy know that it's going to be tough for him. And after that first penalty or two, like, he's pretty much disciplined the rest of the game. And I think there are certain defenders in the league that are a little bit scared to take those penalties at times, and sometimes those are needed. And he's just that enforcer that, like, he's going to have Wardle's back no matter what. He's willing to fight. If he's not going to fight every night, but if there's a dude that wants to throw it down, like, he will take care of business. And that's why, like, when the Jack Hanna thing came about, I was like, do not trade Warren Jeffrey. Like, you look at everybody else on that roster, who else is willing to do all the things he's willing to do between blocking shots, fight for loose balls and rebounds. He scores in transition, I feel like, fairly often for what, he's asked to do. And yeah, like you said, there's some guys on Buffalo, I think, that do the same thing, where it's like, you need those guys to just kind of be the enforcer. And he's been Colorado's, I think, most consistent enforcer as well.
Yeah, we kind of call those ones like the statement penalties or the enforcer penalties,
exactly.
where, like, it happens in the first quarter, diving across the crease, you're going to pay the price. So in the third and fourth quarter, those players are going to think twice before diving in front of your goaltender, that if I do, this is probably going to hurt a lot. But Owen Down seems to have taken that next step this season. He leads the team in caused turnovers. He's fifth in loose balls, second in block shots. Has he shown the most growth from the guys on the back end so far this year?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, just because I think he's one of the few that kind of returned to have that opportunity. So from that standpoint, absolutely. I think there's a few rookies that potentially could sneak in there. I think Connor Knock has been really, really good for him being a young guy. Dylan Hess, for his first season playing box, I think just looks like a natural. But yeah, Owen Down, it's funny. There was a game last year, I think it was, against Georgia, where Lyle Thompson had 6 points. And I remember thinking during the game, like, wow, Owen Down's taking Lyle out of this game. Like, I don't remember many of his points. And I look at the stat sheet after the game for the presser, and I'm like, oh, Lyle had 6 points. Like, and that was like the first point in my mind where I was like, okay, Owen Down is a good defender, and he's going to keep getting better. And, like, yeah, tonight he went up against one of the best to ever play in Lyle Thompson, but, like, at some point he'll get the best of him. And he's kind of just continued to do that over the course of this season, to where there is no liability all of a sudden. Like, whoever he's guarding, I feel completely fine about. And like you said, leads the team in caused turnovers. Like, the dude's a menace. It's so nice. I can't speak enough about how nice it is to have a big body on that back end like him. I look at a team like Buffalo, where, like, you have Paul Dawson and Priolo and those guys, that it's like two big tree trunks just standing there. And to have a guy like him, and I would even throw Warren Jeffrey in there, especially when you look at the rest of the defense that we have. Like, Connor Cook's not that big. Dylan Hess is a beefier guy, but not quite as tall up there. When Brett Craig is healthy, which isn't often, but when he is, he's back there as well. So yeah, just having a guy like that, and I think having him continue to get better year over year I know that first year and two he wasn't awesome. I know he dealt with some injuries, but I feel like the last couple seasons he's really come along, which is nice to see.
Now, the Mammoth have their own Ian McKay 2.0 this season in Jalen Chaster. I know he was out last game, and I'm sure the Buffalo Bandits are hoping he might want to take that extra week's rest this coming weekend. But players like him who can really play the two-way game, to me, are the most coveted players across this league. Has Chatfield, I mean Chaster, sorry, I had to toss that one in there. Has he been the biggest surprise on the back end so far this season, being able to play both sides of the ball?
Yeah, by far. Coming into the year, I had heard they were trying to work him into some offensive shifts, and you can kind of see it as well. If you watched last year, there were definitely times where they said, no, stay out there and play offense. And I knew because he played offense in summer ball in Canada that, like, that's something he can do, like in Ian McKay. But what we haven't seen at the NLL level. And so seeing him kind of come into his own offensively to where it's like I said earlier, how do you take him off of offense when McLaughlin comes back? I really don't know. And that has been just so impressive. And like, I think Owen Ron has kind of stepped into that as well, but Chaster has just kind of taken over to where it's like, well, you're going to be that third lefty. You know, if it's Malcolm and Q, I love Thomas Vella. I mean, Chaster is able to score on one end, be a shutdown defender on the other end, or shut someone down, take the ball and go score on the other end, or stay and play and stuff like that. And that isn't something I expected in his first season playing offense in the NLL. I knew he was good in Canada, but yeah, it's been insane to watch. And again, we already have guys like TJ Camizio sitting out on the back end. If you move him back there when McLaughlin comes back, like, who else gets bumped at that point?
Yeah, it's a good problem to have with too much talent. But the team has a ton of youth out the back door. Dylan Hess, Connor Knock, Ari Stevens, just to name a few. Now, who, in your opinion, it will have the most growth out the back door that's the coach, Pat Coyle, is going to be able to toss him out in a penalty kill situation or late in the game to get a stop that we can listen back and go, yeah, Brandon said that this guy was going to step up by the end of the season, and he had it first.
Man, that's tough. I think Connor Knock is a typical Pat Coyle defender. Big, strong. Even last week, he was getting a little chippy at one point, just for fun. And I was like, yeah, that's Pat Coyle's guy. But I think a guy like Dylan Hess, really, just because, like I said, he has that big frame to where no one's going to be able to body him, really. I think he's smart. I think he's fast enough to, perform in transition if needed. He has the stick skills. I think if you watched him in the PLL this past season, I mean, he was outstanding. Probably should have been in Rookie of the Year, at least conversations at some point. But because he's a D guy, that doesn't get talked about, which, we mentioned. But yeah, I would go Dylan Hess. Just I think he can play defense on anybody. He's fast enough to play defense on anybody. He can slide well. He can lay the boom too. I think once he figures out how to kind of safely do that, like a Warren Jeffrey, if he can kind of overtake that role once Warren eventually kind of gets out of the league, which hopefully is far down the line. But I think it'll be Dylan Hess in general. I think Connor Knock is a close second, but I think he's already kind of been there since he's been playing box for so long that he'll have less of an obvious jump, I think.
Somewhere Teddy Jenner is smiling very big because of that answer.
Yep.
If it wasn't for Brett Dobson, Dillon Ward would be everyone's pick for goalie of the year. Do you think maybe it's been the improved defense? Do you think it's his own play? Do you think it's a combo of, between both of that have seen Dillon Ward bounce back to where he was when Colorado was in the finals and winning those championships?
Yeah, I think it's a couple of things. First, I think obviously he won the cup. You go back, you get beat real bad in that game 3. I think he had a kid that next year, and I don't want to be that person that's like finding an excuse, but I do think that played a factor. You look at his play after he had that first child, and it wasn't great. He actually just had another child this year or last year, and I think he kind of figured out some ways to be a little bit better after that. So that's the first thing. Second thing I'll say is the defense did get better. It's younger, it's quicker. I think the quote-unquote Bandits rule has kind of helped. I know we talked about that in Discord server recently, that I just think he's seeing the ball a lot better. And I think because they're so young now, there's like no one's stuck in their ways. Like he's able to kind of say, this is what I want to see. We're doing this. I think having Tim Edwards be a full-time defenseman as well can't be understated enough to where now, hey, Tim, don't worry about face-offs. You can just come and be just a key defender, which is awesome and only helps Dillon Ward. And yeah, I just think, I don't know if maybe he heard the noise or, well, obviously trade Ward's been going around for 5 or 6 years now, it feels like. And yeah, I mean, outside of Brett Dobson, who I said should be an MVP candidate, like, I don't see why he wouldn't be up there. The only other one that I think is even remotely close right now is maybe CDB. Even in games that I feel like Wardo doesn't look as well, or as good rather, like there are times where the goals will go in and I'm like, well, the defenseman didn't do his job at all. Like, he gave up the underneath, or he shoved him into Ward, so now he can't make the save as well. Like, stuff like that happens. And but then you watch games where he's given up 5 goals or 6 goals, whatever it was, to Halifax. And as much as we can talk about how Halifax has been disappointing, like, they still have Randy Stotts and Cody Jamieson and all these guys, and I'm like, he's doing a pretty good job. So it's a combination of a lot of those things, but overall, I think he's just had time to settle down. He didn't play as much in PLL this year, which I think helps. I think he played 5 games. When you play 10 games in the summer and you come into an NLL season expecting to play 18, like that's tough on the body for a goalie. So long-winded answer, but excited with how he's playing right now.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up was Colorado made such deep finals runs, and then he was making the deep runs in PLL. Eventually, you're going to get worn down. That's kind of what we brought up a couple episodes ago, where a lot of these Buffalo Bandits players have played a ton of lacrosse. Maybe that adds up too. But You mentioning, the defense screwing up in front of him, it just brings me back to how we do the goalie segment. And the other team's got good players too, guys. They're going to put the ball on the back of that. It's not always the goalie's fault, and that just drives me up a wall listening to people complain that, man, Vince, you got to put the backup in. It's probably the same out there in Colorado with Dillon Ward.
Oh yeah, there's a couple of fans that you recognize that you're like, oh, you're the people that seem to think that every goal that goes in is the goalie's fault on both ends. And I'm like, well, sometimes it's just a good shot placement that, like you said, these guys are professionals. And when they have, a 1-by-1 square in the top corner and they hit that 1-by-1 square, like, I'm sorry, that's a good shot. That's not on the goalie necessarily. So yeah, it's tough sometimes hearing that, but that's why every good performance from him, I'm just like looking in the crowd like, you see that? So
yeah, what now? But you might be our first photographer on this podcast. Now, has this always been what you've wanted to do, and if it has, what kind of led you down that path to photography?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's actually funny. So I graduated college in 2023, spring 2023, and I was writing about the Mammoth because in my capstone, it was kind of like, hey, you've had 4 years to kind of do different projects. I was a journalism major, but within that program, you could do all types of stuff: videography, photography, writing, different stuff. And so it was like the last assignment, you need to do something that you've never done before. And I was like, well, I've never done like a column that's, consistently covering something. And I was like, well, I watch the Mammoth every weekend. Like, I'll just write about them. And so at the end of the year, we kind of do our review with some professionals and teachers and stuff. And I show them some writing. I show them some graphics I've done and all this stuff. And one of the teachers was like, why don't you just rent a camera and go shoot high school games? Build out a portfolio, because it seems like you have a little bit of everything here. And I was like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm getting my degree so I can go work 9 to 5, like, whatever. Not even 2 days later, I turned my Instagram to public to promote an article just out of the blue, just hoping someone sees it. Sure enough, someone that has a sort of up-and-coming small outlet that I'm no longer with hits me up and it's like, hey, I need someone. And so I went. My first ever event was literally that week, and it was a Colorado Mammoth game. It was against Calgary Roughnecks in the Western Conference Finals. And from then on, I was like, yo, this is so cool. Not only do I get to watch games, but I get like a forever memory out of it that no one else has. Like, sure, all of us can buy T-shirts and buy autographs and all that, but like, I get to go see the game at field level and get a lasting memory. And so from then on, I just kind of dove deep with like, well, if I'm going to work a 9 to 5, what am I doing with the rest of my time? I could sit around and do nothing. Like, I love video games. I love, hanging with my family, all that stuff, but like, I want something more. And so I just kind of kept going. And then over the summer, I started shooting for my girlfriend's brother's football team and like all types of stuff, to where it was just like, hey, let me just go all in. Let me spend the, little bit of money I need to get some equipment and just go for it. And then from then on, started shooting lacrosse, and that's where I got with DU and Mammoth and PLL and all that stuff. And so now here I sort of am, just trying to find a full-time gig.
That's what I find a lot of people say is they find it by accident, not just photography, but kind of anywhere in their field. Like, I am doing nothing related to what I graduated with, and
Yeah.
I love it. But Bandits versus Mammoth, Saturday night, two teams headed in opposite directions. Colorado's won 4 straight. Buffalo's lost 2 straight, but they've beaten Colorado 3 straight in the regular season. What kind of game are you expecting us to all see on Saturday night?
I'm kind of expecting sort of what we saw against Oshawa last week, but I think the score will be closer. I think there are points in each game where kind of both teams had it going. And, Oshawa went on their run, Colorado went on their run, and there was a point in time where it felt like this could kind of go either way if the scales continue to tip. And I think these two teams really just play each other really well every time they play. I know people are kind of down on Buffalo right now because they're 3-3. I said before the season they'd be in the championship, and I told Neil this past week that, like, I'm kind of going to rock with that until they prove that, like, they can barely make the playoffs because they're still the best team in the league, on paper. They still have the best goalie of all time, in my opinion. Dane Smith, Ian McKay, Josh Byrne, who I think he's had a quiet season, which is saying something considering his point total is astronomical, So that's where I just feel like it's going to be kind of a scrappy game to where whoever kind of gets out to that early lead and it can at least sustain some type of consistency. Maybe not, if they come out and score 5 goals in the first, I'm not saying they have to score 5 every quarter, but if you can get 5 and then 3 the next 3 quarters or something like that, I think that's who's going to come out on top. But I think we're in for probably a good goalie duel, if I had to guess.
What area of Colorado's game do you think they have the edge over the Bandits that will help them get this win on Saturday night and move to 6-2?
Yeah, it's going to sound so insane to the listeners because of who the names I just said, but I think it is offense right now. I think you watch the Bandits last couple of games, and it's not that they're like playing horribly offensively, but I don't feel like they're as dominant as what we've come to expect from them. And maybe that's on us as fans to keep putting that on them. But I feel like right now Colorado's just kind of moving and grooving to where, like, Jack Hanna had 7 points last week. He had 1 goal. And there's too many of those guys, I think, right now that are just kind of meshing well. I think coming off of a win like that where Owen Ron plays really well, if Chester comes back, he's been playing well. Thomas Vella's playing really well, and stuff like that. And I think, too, I am interested to see, the face-off battle. Matthew Pilato, I think, has been pretty good. Even in games that he loses the majority of the face-offs, he's making the other face-off athlete work really hard. So, to me, I think it's sort of offensively right now. Could I look really stupid after this game? Absolutely, because it's still Dane Smith and Josh Byrne in them. But I think Ward and Vince also is a big one. But I do think they're 2 of the greatest to ever play. And, if one of them has an off night, that will end up being kind of the deciding factor. But I think you could say that for about every game because the goalie is like the most important position. So,
yeah, I won't be in Colorado up in the press box, so they're probably going to Buffalo's going to explode. They're 0-3 when I'm in a press box, so. And it's the.
Are you sure you don't want to make the trip?
I know, right? Colorado. The closest I've been to Colorado was we were headed to Vancouver this last fall in September, and we had a layover in Denver. I've always wanted to be to Denver, so I'll hit you up if the wife ever lets me go to Denver. But which battle are you most looking forward to watching in this matchup? Is it Hannah versus the beat up left-handed defenders for Buffalo? Is it Ward versus Vince? You already mentioned it, but Matthew Pilato versus Connor Farrell, or something else that might be catching your eye?
Yeah, I mean, like I just said, Ward versus Vince is always a movie to me. That's especially, I mean, I've watched Ward my entire life, pretty much. So just seeing him continue to play at a high level is awesome. And then Matt Vince, I just think every time I watch that guy, I'm like, wow, like I just don't know how he does it at his age, quite frankly. So I think that's kind of the cop-out answer of just always. I'm really interested to see Jack Hanna and if he can put up some goals, numerous goals, rather. Not that I'm, annoyed with a 7.6 assist performance, but I would like to see him kind of pick on that side that maybe is struggling a little bit health-wise and performance-wise. Like I want to see him put goals in the back of the net, and we know he can do it. But again, going up against Matt Vince that's where the tough part comes in of, like, you're going to have to play mind games with him because he's been there, done that. I think he's a 6-time champ, if I'm not mistaken. Like, he's seen pretty much everything you can throw at him. So I think those two. But like I said, too, like the face-off stripe that's one of my favorite parts of the game, quite frankly, is watching guys face off and seeing the strategy there. So excited for that as well. But lots of good matchups I'm looking forward to.
Just two more for you here. For the Mammoth to get the win, this needs to happen. What is that?
It's going to have to be an early lead, and it's going to have to be a multi-goal lead. I think, I'm not saying it has to be 2-0 immediately. If they give up one, that's fine, but I think at the end of that first, they're going to have 3 or 4 goals minimum and a 2-goal lead or more. Just, again, Buffalo's not a team you can play around with. I don't care how good you are. And I do think like the more that this team kind of wins in a row, the more that those kind of trap games, quote unquote, kind of step in to where it's like, okay, is this the one? Is, maybe they beat Buffalo, now it's 5-0. Okay, is the next one the one? And so that to me is a little bit scary. But I think so far we've seen this team, when they get out to good leads, they kind of hold on. So yeah, I think that, and then also just if they can get to like 11 goals, I think that's kind of the sweet spot as well. Obviously, they beat Vancouver with 10. We've seen that, but they beat Halifax with 11, last week with 15, 18 against Roch. So I think 11 is kind of that sweet spot for them.
Last one for you, and like last year, it relates nothing to the guest and the sport. And I gave you like 24 hours notice to come up with this one. I don't know if you got an answer now. If your life was turned into a movie, who would be playing you as the lead role?
Yeah. I truly have no idea. I'm trying to think. Man, this is a tough one. I don't watch
too many.
If
it'll help you.
Yeah. Who's yours?
Okay, so I came up with this. I was sitting next to my wife, and I was like, who would play me in a movie? And she couldn't come up with anybody. I was like, I got one. And then I tossed it out, and she had no idea who this even was. I said Charlie Day. I feel like I wanted to say Ryan Reynolds, but I don't have the Ryan Reynolds look. Like, I got a face for no video whatsoever. Like, when we were just audio, it made sense. But yeah, I would go, I think, and maybe that's talking too high about myself. Maybe I'm thinking too highly of myself, but I said Charlie Day.
Okay.
It's good if you don't got an answer. This one always stumps everybody. Not just this question, but this last series, because they change all the time.
I think I have maybe a similar humor style to Ryan Reynolds, maybe in everyday life.
Okay.
So maybe something like that. I don't know. I'd have to think of an actor that maybe is just like more mellow, just kind of goes about his business and just does stuff he enjoys. I don't know. That's a tough one. I even thought all day. I was like looking up actors. I was like, I need to think of one. I couldn't think of one that would accurately represent me.
We'll go Ryan Reynolds. That works. I love Ryan Reynolds, so that works. But Brandon, thank you for jumping on with us. Do you want to let everyone know where they can find you, the podcast, anything else that you want to plug for the listeners?
Yeah, so I'm at Hoot Sports Media on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, whatever you have. At the Runout actually is going on at I am Neil Barrett's Twitter account right now. So there's that. At Tar Pit Colorado, the Tar Pit Colorado, I think, is the account for all Mammoth stuff. And then Outside the Box podcast as well is on all platforms, YouTube, all that stuff. So, see all my photos on there and wherever else you happen to see them.
Thank you for jumping on again with us with the BSC. Hope to talk to you down the road. If I do travel out to Colorado, I'll let you know. And continued success with everything else that you're doing.
Awesome. Appreciate you.
We will be back Friday with our normal episode to preview Bandits versus Mammoth. We will talk to you all then.